Ahoy, and welcome back to the workaround. This is yet another in a series of not interviews, discussions. We're not doing interviews anymore here. That was an experiment. It's what we're doing is discussions with, to be honest, people that I've known for a while and trusted and are making great content. And when I think of all those things, this person that I'm here with today, Meredith Meyer, checks all the boxes. She's had a really interesting career. She's writing, she's coaching, she's got startup ideas, lots of different stuff. She and I first got to know each other way back in like 2001,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
We were working on the Tide brand together, and we touch base every couple of years, check in, pick each other's brains on something. I what I find one of the things I find really neat about Meredith is she like still retains this youthful wonder and energy that I still remember from the Tide
I'm
bullpen.
trying.
You still got it. Keep it, despite all the things in life that has come since then. But I'm going to let her introduce herself. She's got her career. She's gone from that marketing brand roles into people roles at software start companies. And we started talking more in the last year as she's been pondering this move from the corporate world into consulting and coaching, which is something near and dear to me. And every time we talk, the conversation, starts flying by. We come up with new insights. And so it was a no-brainer to say, let's invite millions of other people in to listen to or watch one of our conversations. So welcome, Meredith. Give me a
Thank you.
better introduction of yourself than I did. And the theme today, and you can kick us off as well, is lessons from coaching people.
hmm hmm well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about coaching because I feel like over the last year, regardless of what I'm working on, it's always in the back of my mind. How is the human brain reacting to this? How could you help coach someone through this sort of situation or this position in this organization? So it's very near and dear to me. Yeah, I think my career only makes sense to me, honestly. I've made a lot of kind of left turns and it's always worked out. So I'm not complaining. I started, as you said, at P&G, was in brand management for the first part of my career, learned a ton, as you will at P&G, so many really smart structures, ways of thinking, discipline, and moved into marketing. Then, with all of that, you would think I would go to another brand company, but instead I went to work for an education foundation, which I loved. So I was the chief marketing officer there for a number of years. And during that time, it was an interesting organization in that it had really top talent that was coming from around the country to work for this organization. But we weren't thinking about people and talent at all. And I was acting in a chief of staff role by that time in that organization, and asked if I could take that on for the organization and kind of think about that. I mean, we had HR processes running well, but we weren't necessarily thinking strategically about talent. And I just fell in love with the work. I think it feels really, really important to do it right. And I didn't do it right then, actually. I mean, I did a lot of things, I think, in that organization, but I'm not sure I did it right. I was kind of obsessed at that time with best practice and here's all the stuff we need to be doing. Um, Whereas now, and we'll get to this later, I have
Yeah.
a much more nuanced understanding of how kind of change happens at the individual level, and changing people and brains and kind of how people approach problems is so much more important. But I did that work well. I mean, I loved it and I wanted to continue it. So I left that organization and became a fractional chief talent officer because I had so much experience that people should hire me to do that. I mean, yes, I've always felt free to try anything that I want. And that was just a blast. I mean, I worked with a big government organization, a bank, like a big federal bank, startups, companies that are actually producing and building stuff and kind of have a lot of frontline workers. I mean, I think it was just a really, really good experience. And I saw a variety of sectors doing that work. And I also, and then I kind of got an opportunity to go work for a tech company and to elevate that work and work globally. And couldn't turn that down. So I spent 5 years managing global workplace for a tech company. that had a really, really interesting kind of philosophy on people. And I feel like I learned a lot. It was much more minimalistic than anything that I had been producing in the past. And it really changed my mindset on, what people need and what actually makes people happy and satisfied in their work, which frankly is doing the work. I mean, I think being able to do your best work is always what makes people the most happy. Like I think it's not necessarily perks. I mean, people deserve perks, but perks and programs and other things, it's relationships and doing great work. Like those are the two things to me. So, and I'm actually making this up as we speak. I don't know that I've ever said that out
Really?
loud,
This
Bob.
is good.
So, okay, good. But I feel like I learned so much during that time. And then over the last, and then I just gotten to the point where I did what I felt like I could do within the confines of that organization. And I thought, okay, let's see what I can do on my own, starting to consult with organizations, coaching people. I decided to get my coaching certification formally. And I think that's kind of an interesting journey too, because I entered that with a big ego. I mean, I thought, I'm really good at this. I mean, I feel like I've always been pretty good at managing people. People enjoy working for me. We have a good vibe on our team. I thought that was the natural talent that I had. And I learned that I was doing it wrong, to be honest. Like, and one of the things I'd love to talk about today is just human motivation and kind of and people needing to solve problems for themselves, which is, I think as a manager and a leader, you're in there trying to help people solve their problems or the work, and I've been leading too much. That's kind of what I've learned in the last year, is that people need to solve their own problems, and my job is to help them do that. So, okay, I mean, I think
great.
that's my entree into coaching.
Well, there's so many on ramps here. Do you want to start in some particular place, or you want me to dive in?
Go ahead. If there's something that piqued your curiosity, I'm happy to.
Lots of stuff. I got a quarter page of notes already. That was just the intro. But one thing, let's go back. Last in, first out, maybe. Learned in the past year about managing your own ego and working with other people. Let's break that down.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a lot to say about the ego, because I think that's been such an and one of the things I wanted to talk about. So I've actually really come in the last year to subscribe to understand that there are different parts of life. Like I think about kind of a first half of life and a second half of life. And the second half of life doesn't make you old. It can just make you more actualized, which is what I've been working on. I think when I left a big job at a tech company, there's an ego piece of that, right? It's like, what the heck am I doing? Like out here by myself in Cincinnati, Ohio, it just, my ego was struggling with that, right? And I feel like I was in the midst of, I don't know, I think Brene Brown calls it the great unraveling. You spend the first half of your life kind of building up your ego, proving that you can do stuff, that you're capable, that you're an adult. And then you get to this point where it's like, well, what am I doing? Like, why do I need to follow these rules? Like, why is this structure important? Like, why are all these things that I'm doing, why do they make any sense? And it is like an act of violence to unravel that. Like, it's very painful because your ego is it's beating you up. Like, that's crazy. You have to do this. Like, you need to make this amount of money. You need to have this title. You're such a capable person. Why are you letting go of this? It's a really, really interesting moment. And I feel like that's kind of what I've experienced in the past year. I mean, I'd love to say I've come out fully on the other side. I haven't. But I feel like I get it, like what I'm trying to do here, which is kind of let go of trying to prove things to anyone and figure out what I'm really capable of. And that's really helping other people. Like, how do I serve the world? How do I help other people? And then still make money. Like, I'm not super totally altruistic here, but I feel, I think that's where I'm at. And I'm actually attracting a lot of coaching clients who are in that space too. I mean, I think it's actually a studied phenomenon in psychology that most people can't hit that place until their 40s or 50s. Because they just don't have enough lived experience. They haven't built their ego up enough to even know that it's become an issue. So, so that's the journey that I've been on. for sure. And I'm trying to help others at least recognize it. I don't know if I'm capable of guiding people through it yet, but just recognizing and reflecting on where you are and what that is. So
That's great. I mean, I completely agree. I think seen it myself, seen it in others, read this in Buddhism. I mean,
oh
read
yeah,
this in
yeah,
Stoicism. I mean, it's you mature. We have seasons of life. Like it's just an evolutionary advantage too, where we are a creature that has to survive. As I
yeah,
understand the ego,
yes,
it's like, okay, it's a program that we get into adolescence, especially, and the childhood wonder, and the like everything's beautiful, and you giggle and play, and
right,
then suddenly like social rules come in, and that's when we worry about, what do people think about us? I need to develop skills. I'm going to be on my own someday. I'm going to have to get into a
right,
college and have a career. And then you kind of like form yourself like strategically to fit in.
yep,
And then I think the turning point that you hope for is that there is like a crisis or something that you go, okay, I'm okay now. Like I made it. Like not, you made a pedestal, but you survived and you figured it out, and now you can kind of like chip away at those parts of yourself, because then
yes,
you realize like it is more fun to be with other people. It is like
yes.
what's in me versus what can I put up against the world.
I mean, it's like the consonance of that is so beautiful. Like I feel like that you I mean, I agree. The ego protects us, right? I mean, it's essential. We need it. Um, and it just creates like dissonance between us and other people. And like when you can let go of that, it's just like that to me, that's like the ultimate feeling of power. Like we're looking for power our whole lives. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like like when you can let go of it, and I don't know, I'm not quite there yet. Like, I mean, I'm speaking to something that I can see, but I'm feeling moments of it. Anyway, I might be getting a little too,
No,
Buddhist.
no,
Not a
keep
Buddhist, but I
going.
do think I follow it
That's
as
your
really
ego. You just said, by
interesting.
the way, hold that point. When you say, I might be getting to, that's your
Yeah,
little ego coming in and saying,
you're right.
you know,
You're right. Like, what
being
does it
too
mean?
real here, or I let a pause happen, or, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
word to pick next. Like,
yeah. Such a
um,
good point. Ugh, I know.
but we're already going all over the place, which I love. But like, let me go back to that, and well, maybe we can come back to how do we do it ourselves. But like, I just saw that in you, and I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to get better at, is that like, when you truly, I think it comes into listening. I think like
Yes,
when you let your ego go down, like you're
yes,
not worrying about, I need to puff myself up, or
totally.
make sure the person knows that I'm important and trusts me, and you just kind of go like, hey,
Yes,
what's talk, and then you're still in your brain, but you're listening to who the person really is. And then I love nothing more than like that, those little comments, like it's probably my ego. I write about this sometimes, when I have conversations with people. I say like, it's probably my ego coming in, or it's probably my imposter syndrome, or and people will just say stuff. And if you can go, time out, let's talk about that. Like
yes,
that's the meat, that can unlock something.
yes,
Do you feel that?
totally. I mean, so first of all, the first part of your conversation, I feel like on the topic of coaching, that ability to just fully let go and listen and without trying to think, how am I going to add some smart insight to this person's, especially when someone's paying you to coach them. I mean, I think that
Mm.
it takes it's actually it's a really interesting phenomenon, because I'm someone who, I mean, and I don't know where I'm going with that, but it was a really hard for me actually, because I'm not blustery, or I don't have like I think I've had some coaches who are kind of blowhards and like, oh, I'm going to get you to this. And like, oh yeah, I'm going to take you here. I'm so not like that. I mean, I want to come in and listen, but I do feel that like, how is this person going to feel the value of my support during this hour? Like,
Mm.
what does that look like? And I realize that when I just 100% am in it with them, listening and like picking those insights, as you said, it's like it's always a good experience. Like it's such a gift to have someone listen to you that deeply.
Hmm.
And I'm exhausted. like if I do 90 minutes of coaching with someone, I mean, I feel like people don't understand that. Like, it's not like a consulting and 90 minutes of consulting where I'm just thinking about your strategic plan or whatnot. I mean, being in it with someone is the most exhausting work that I do. Like really listening, like getting everything out of my head, focused, trying to figure out like what that moment is. Like you said, like what's that little piece of something that they said that's the thing that we need to focus on. I mean, I couldn't do it all day. I don't know how people do. I feel like I can talk to 2 people a day. That's it. Like it's interesting.
In a meaningful way.
In a
Like you could have
meaningful way. I
15
mean, I can have
meetings.
meetings all day, Bob. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, but coaching someone, it's all about that listening. And there was another part that something that you brought up. I don't remember. But
Well,
yeah,
what
the
is it?
listening.
You're tired at the end of one of those good coaching sessions. What else do you feel?
I mean, I always feel great. I
Yeah.
just feel true. I
Yeah.
do. Like I go into it like, I don't know, maybe I should be doing, I think this is my ego again. It's like, I should be like focus on strategy work. What am I doing? Like, why am I in this coaching someone? And I come out and I feel like, I mean, I almost always feel like someone had a real breakthrough or an insight that is going to change their practice of leadership or something in their life. And God, there's really not a better feeling than that to me. Like it's the best feeling. Like, and I mean, I feel really satisfied, exhausted, but like I accomplished something that maybe putting together a strategy framework didn't accomplish, right? Like there's not always, you can put a lot of crap on paper and like again, like change happens at the individual level. I love framing things and seeing how everything in an organization fits together. It's definitely a gift I have, but that just could exist in my mind. Like that's another thing I've learned through coaching is like I can't want more for an organization or for a person than they want for themselves. Like they have to make that change. Like it's not, it's really it's hard for me to hold back because I want so much for organizations and people that I work with. But yeah, my job is to get them where they want to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm going to say, I love I don't, is that, I don't think it's an introvert versus extrovert thing, but I too get completely depleted after one of those meaningful conversations, but it's also elevated. Like it's like
Totally.
you know, the word awe
Yes.
of,
That's a
I
great
just
word.
saw like a human blossom in a,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
like I can't believe I'm a witness to this, seeing a human change who they are that could benefit from for their whole life in
Oh
so
my gosh,
many
Bob, you
things.
nailed it. I feel like you just nailed it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And probably, but what's the right, like, so your ego's down. And by the way, let's so good. So time out here. We're not talking, I mean, you could, so for those who are listening, watching, you're coming in as you're doing like professional coaching.
Right.
I'm coming in as a lot of people ask me for advice at this point in my career. And I have like, open office
Hmm.
hours. Anybody that I know or don't know, feel free to grab some time. And so people do like come to me. And often there's like a gravitation of, oh, that guy's there. I should just talk to him. And then 5 minutes in, they unlock some, insight like this. So I'm a amateur therapist, amateur coach, but I'm doing more
But
and,
you're
and it's
very good at it,
exciting.
Bob. Let's be clear.
We'll
Keep
see.
going.
Well, I have one of my things here is how I did something bad at least once, more than once, but
Same.
something I'm trying to
Same.
fix. But so that's like some background. Like, but I think the awesome thing is when you realize you are a leader or people, you're managing people, to go, oh, I need to get better at listening. I need to
Yes.
get better at understanding. And there's, infinite number of books and other coaches you could get and podcasts and like the content is there if
Right.
you just like get that. And one of the things I'd love to go back to is conversation we had last about, you've said some, call it CEOs you've worked with. Some get it, some don't.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, how do you give us that like landscape of those data points and why some do and why some don't?
Hmm. I feel like in the past, I would have said some people get that you have to invest in people and some people don't. But that goes back to, I think, mistakes I've made in terms of programs are the answer or scaffolding for talent is the answer. I was thinking about this more this morning, actually, and I think it's back to some people get that they need to let people solve their own problems and lead, and some people just need to dictate everything. Like, and I don't, I actually feel like it's more that even than what we talked about before to me. I mean, I think some people, and I work with fewer of these people just because they don't choose me as a consultant, but some people don't care about people at all. It's just money. Like, people are expendable. I don't actually touch those people very often because they would never hire me. Because I need, that's a baseline for me to work with you. But I still see leaders, wonderful, like people who've done great things for their organization, but they're not growing talent around them. They're creating yes people inadvertently in some cases because they just can't stop themselves from making all the decisions for people and in telling people what they should do in a situation. Like, they can't stand to let someone fumble, or they have a very specific point of view and everyone must adhere to that way of thinking. I don't know. I guess I'm thinking more for the long term now with leaders. Like, how do you build an organization? I'm doing a lot of succession planning with different CEOs right now, and it's, some people are just better than others at allowing people to screw up, make their own decisions, find their own motivation. And maybe it fits with a company, or maybe they have to leave. Like, their thing doesn't work for you. But I don't know. I mean, I have worked in a company where like the CEO's name came up in literally every conversation about anything.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's like,
what does George think? Well, George said this. What did George say in the meeting? Well, I thought
correct.
George said that in the meeting. Yeah.
And it just, it just shuts down creativity and innovation, right? You're innovating to like figure out, you're trying to game plan like what that person's going to say as opposed to what the customer needs, or like what the best thing for the company would be. It's just that's what I'm trying to help people see. And I can only help people see that who care, right? I mean, it's such a hard habit to break. I'm from working with somebody now who it's just, it's hard to make that shift. That's actually how I define caring about people, or not, caring is the wrong word, right? Like, getting it versus not getting it. I don't even know if that's the right frame anymore, because I'm leaving behind the talent stuff. Because I think all this programmatic stuff is dumb. Like, I'm not dumb. I shouldn't have said that. You can edit that out later, Bob. It's not dumb. It's just not adding the value that it takes to create
programmatic.
Yeah.
What do you mean by programmatic? What is that?
I mean, just like
ad world,
like teams and a bunch of, I love social events, like a bunch of events and
training programs,
like a lot of training programs. Training isn't bad. I mean, I train people sometimes, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think. Yeah, just being like, I solved the problem. We have a training program. Like, I think that happens a lot.
Or we need a tool, like,
we need a tool. Exactly. Like, we can't, someone is scared to make the decision, so now we need a tool. Like something, like, instead of addressing the problem. Yeah. And a lot of times when it comes to people, the problem is like a person. So like someone, that's another kind of observation that I have too, is that we dance around a lot of things because one person is a pain in the butt or kind of a bad actor, or like we make all these protocols and processes, and it's like, could we just go tell that person to stop? Like, I mean, that's, just another human observation from the
Have
past.
you solved that one?
I think my role often as a consultant or as a coach is to call that out. I mean, I can't make that happen. But I do think sometimes when people are faced with like, okay, we could go create this whole thing, or you could go talk to this person, like they get it, right? I mean, it's not, I think, and that's another thing I had written down too, is like all these stories we tell ourselves about how we're a victim or it's that person's fault, so we can just stop thinking, right? Like it's like, oh, I don't have to do the hard thing or like think through this tough problem because I've decided that person X is the problem.
Mm.
And yeah, that's my other job, is to make you aware of like stories that you're telling yourself about that, which all humans do. I do it. Like it's
Mhm.
not judgment, but you have to be aware.
So what's the best way tell to show them
Mhm.
that story? Like, just let's
Mhm.
take that one specific example.
Yeah.
How would you even do that?
I mean, I think that like I'm always trying to help people figure out where they have agency in a situation. So it's like, okay, this person is a blocker. Like they're really a pain in the butt right now. But what could you do? Like if you want to solve this problem, so let's
Mhm.
get away from all of this. If you want to solve this problem, what could you do? Like let's brainstorm all the things that you could do. And some of them may not be possible in your environment, but we have to like you have to turn the conversation to action, I think, and
Mhm.
like what the person can actually manage in the situation.
Mm.
Because I'm working with leaders, a lot of times it's interesting just to go through the pros and cons. And I think that's another important coaching thing. I mean, is not putting people on the defensive, just really not judging people.
Mm.
Like we all do things that stink sometimes. And we're wimps, like we do all of it. Like just being able to say, okay, I know this sucks, but like here's the choice. You can have your people spend all the time doing this, or you can make this call. How do you, and I wouldn't say it like that probably to someone. So let me think about how I would. I would probably try and gently get someone to realize that themselves. I mean, you
Yeah.
start iterating on what the options are and they'll get there, right? I mean, even if it's not that it is we're talking right then, they might get there 2 months later,
Mhm.
but that seed is in there. I don't know if that helped.
Do you use I wouldn't call it a trick, but like in mastermind groups, for example, like in my world, people I know are an entrepreneurs organization or YPO. It's often like there's eight company leaders in a recurring group. They meet every 6 weeks or something, and someone raises their hand and, hey, I've got this problem with an employee, and then the other seven people go, here's how I dealt with something
Mm-hmm.
similar. Not you should
Mm-hmm.
do this, which is
Yes.
another.
Yes.
So that's something that's like a tactic. Like, how do
Yep.
you?
Absolutely.
Here's what I did, which kind of like makes it safer. I'm not, pointing the finger at you, or
Yes.
well, I'm better. Like it takes some of that ego down. But I think I hear what you're saying is more like, how do you, that's maybe better, but not. It's not theirs. It's still a data point of
Right.
somebody else, and your ego could go, well, that's his business, that works, or well, easy for him to say, or. But I think what you're saying is more of, can you lead them down the trail so that they figure it out on their own? It's like,
Yes.
great idea. Glad I thought of it, kind of.
Yeah. And it's not, I feel like when I gave that example, I was even leading too much, honestly. Like it's literally, but there are sometimes I feel like when you're coaching and something is pretty clear, and that's when it's toughest, I think. Like it might be clear to me, there, but I have to hold back. I mean, I agree with that tactic that you just shared. I usually try and ask them, like, would you like to hear something that's worked for me? Because I feel like we have to change, which I know is just a subtle change, but I feel like that helps them understand that this is different. Like this is not that I'm just going to shoot. I am going to share an example. It kind of creates that pause.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think you have to be. How do I want to say this? I mean, another thing I've noticed coaching is that people take your encouragement and your judgment so deeply. Like humans do that. Like even if they don't, I mean, your belief in someone else as a research phenomenon, like as a manager or as a parent, like your belief in someone is so enormously important. Like they can feel that, they can see it, like the fact that you believe in them.
Hmm.
So I feel like I have to be so careful with anything that reeks of judgment, and even encouragement. I mean, I think you and I had this conversation and I said, like from a coaching conversation that you had with me,
Yep.
where I was
On my
talking about a
list. Keep
startup
going.
idea and you were like, you should do it. Like I believe, like he's like, I think you could do it. And I really took that to heart, even though I needed to let go of that idea. I was like, Bob believes in me, that, and he's such a great thinker on this. And I realized I had to deconstruct that in my mind because it means so much to people when you believe in them. So I have to be careful. So, because I'm a cheerleader, like I believe people are capable of so much. And sometimes that's not what they want for themselves. And you have to be careful that you're not giving them something. And I'm not saying you did that to me. I mean, I took that in the way, but
Oh
I
yeah,
have to be careful.
I'm guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go off on that because it's probably my biggest lesson of 2025 so far, or the
Yeah.
past year, which is I don't know where I think what like everything, multiple things, data points, and then finally the sixth one makes it click. But um, I think it was maybe a friend of mine who is jumping into an entrepreneurial venture. And a mutual friend was saying, I can't believe he's doing that. I don't know if that's a good idea. And I thought for a moment, did I encourage him to make this leap? And I don't, it could work out. It might not. I do think either way, at the end of the day, he made his own life choice. And if it
Mhm.
fails, he's going to learn a ton from it and he'll be okay. If it succeeds, he'll be so, proud and learn new things. But I got to that point and I think I came, into our discussion, our last one, I started off saying, can you give me some book recommendations? Because I think I need to invest in trying to be a better therapist, amateur
Mhm.
therapist.
Mhm.
And, one of those, I think back to in for doctors, I think the Hippocratic Oath, the first line is, it was like two lines. First, it's like, physician, heal thyself. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The other one is
Mhm.
like, first, do no harm.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
I do right and think, and I just generally do have a very strong bias of wanting people to get more agency in their careers and it's not start a business. I think this is one way, but like, we got one life. Like, go take the
Yes.
hero's journey. Go
Yes.
take big risks. Like,
Totally.
that's what we're here for. Why are you working for some asshole? Like, you
Mhm.
got one life. So I am a cheerleader on that. And whatever that risk or journey, like, just dude, go somewhere. And I also think every person who does that makes the world better for all of us. But when you said, yeah, you kind of like got me all excited about entrepreneurship. Or sometimes I feel like I'm the voice that has to be, oh, they're going to do this startup idea and I really don't like it. And I think I've seen this fail so many times and they're going to raise money and that's going to suck. And I feel like I have to be the voice against cheerleading sometimes too.
Uh-huh.
But now, the book that I've been reading is, I don't know if you recommended this one or not, but it's Carl Rogers.
Oh,
I
I
think
don't know
it's the
this
book. I'll
one.
link to it, at the end of
Yeah.
this. But he was like, a prominent, popular, well-known psychotherapist from the 50s and 60s in the U.S. And he had a completely different approach that was more like, I mean, his book is essentially lower. Don't try to put yourself onto them. Don't give them the answers,
Yes.
and just give them absolute safety and acceptance.
Yes.
And that is like changing my whole perspective of just. And I try to do now, like, okay, Bob, in that time when the Zoom screen is loading, you go, okay, Bob, I'm just here for them. Let me try to figure out what they need and help them see it.
That's so amazing,
Not to
Bob.
start another
Yes.
entrepreneur, but
Oh, safety. Like, oh God, we just need I mean, that's a topic I think about all the time. When people feel safe, they're so willing to be honest about themselves. And you can actually solve problems. Like when people feel safe. I know that about myself too. I mean, I'm pretty experienced, but if I can get with people and feel not safe, it happened to me just like last month. I was in a conversation and I feel like someone was attacking me, and I thought, wow, like I've lost control of this and my body, and it's
ooh,
it's really interesting. I mean, but safety just, yeah, like when there's so many things that happen in your brain when you lose safety. I mean, I feel like all the blood's rushing out to your fight or flight. Like there's nothing in your prefrontal cortex. I mean, you just can't make decisions or be, and yeah, people who are living in fear because of their organization or the situation they're in that's like the saddest thing to me. We have to get rid of that. Like this idea of safety, in whatever space you can get it. But anyway.
Well, I think it's sad that safety, I feel like, is, it's kind of fallen under a world of, against wokeism or against
Right.
EI, like safety. These people need to be
I know it sounds so soft.
and
It's not,
trigger
yeah,
warnings and like, no, safety is just like, let's help people just know that,
totally agree with that.
we've got an island in the chaos, or there's no, I love like the analogy of a ship, like the boat's not leaking. You're not going to get thrown overboard tomorrow.
Yes.
Yet, look at what's happening in corporate America today. Like people are thrown overboard, because we didn't meet the numbers and there's no care. But
creating that in like
yeah.
yeah, that's not, and I don't know that I have the answer for this, but that it's something I'm thinking about a lot right now. It's kind of how you create that for people in an unstable world. I mean, there's so much, and there's only going to be more complexity. I mean, how do you help people feel safe when you may have to do layoffs in the next year, I don't know, when the project and work could completely change in the next month or two. I don't know. I'm still working on that, but need to be able to help my clients do that too.
Yeah, there's another example that and I kind of, if I could just make the world understand, leaders understand, let's try to get safety. Or,
Yes.
the other thing we might get into is like, can you act out of love?
Yeah. Yes.
And versus fear. And I have a friend who was asking
Yes.
for some advice. He's at a fairly new company, and he's done what you've said, like come in and say there's like one or two key people that are just souring it for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of brought him in almost to like, hey, could you help us
Yes.
get rid of these
Happens all the
people?
time. Uh-huh.
And he agrees, like, yeah, we got to get rid of these people. And they've even said that, they tell him like, we've had a conversation. Maybe we just need to cut a couple people just to shake things up. And my reaction, which I think is more of where I am now in the learning, is like, that's a fear-based tactic.
Right. Totally.
Like, okay, you do that, and yeah, you'll get people's attention. Like they'll sit up straight and they'll go to the meeting on time and they'll get their timesheets in, but they'll be thinking, am I next? Plotting, or maybe I need to interview now, or get my resume ready, or
It doesn't bring out the best in people.
no,
Like it's a protectionist.
yeah,
I mean, they'll do what they need to do, but are they going to take a risk? Try something new? Build something? No.
be loyal when things are down,
Right.
like,
Right.
but what's that like? I don't know. What would you tell a client like that? Like, how would you, if you're in that position and, hey, we got to shake things up and.
I mean, first of all, in this example, I shaking things up versus getting rid of people who are messing up the team dynamics are two different things. Like I feel like, and this is a mistake I've made so much. I've made it too many times where I haven't removed someone who is screwing up everything because I believe in them too much. Like this is my known management issue. Like I'm like, I can fix this. They can get better. This, I can change their attitude. Mm-mm. Like the faster that you get rid of that problem, the more trust the rest of the team will have in you. Like it's just, I mean, I believe that. I don't know that I can always execute it, but I believe it. I've seen it. I've learned it. So that, to me, that's different than just like shaking things up. I mean, and perhaps that, the thing is that doesn't create fear. Like that's the other thing. I always think, oh, if I fire this person, people are going to be afraid everyone's going to get fired. No, everybody knows who's sinking the ship. Like everyone knows, and they are all talking about it. Like when you
Yeah,
get rid of them,
yeah,
they're
okay.
cheering. Like
Yeah.
it's not. It is not a fear creator. But just like getting rid of some people to shake things up. I mean, I think it's also different if someone's kind of a bad apple versus a um, like a someone who needs to improve their performance, and then it's a will discussion to me, like if they're motivated to do that or not. Because if someone's performance is poor, that's another thing everyone's talking about, and they're
Mm-hmm.
pissed at you if you don't get rid of them. I don't know, the shakeup for shakeup's sake, absolutely not. Like, but if there are a few people who are souring the team, do it
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
um, and maybe that's the shakeup. Management will see that as a shakeup. You can check that box. That's probably what we would talk about. Um, anyway.
No, that's a good point. I think, yeah, there's a couple times in my career early on. Oh, you've got that person who might be doing a good job, but is just pissing everyone off.
Yes.
And I remember this one person at my agency years ago. She was, uh, very connected to one of our big clients, and she would also
Mhm.
throw out the, well, she loves me, and I went out to dinner with Lara. Oh, and like all these little things, like she'd remind me in a one-on-one how great they are, and it was basically like her defense.
Yep.
She was tough to work, negative to work with, and I'm sitting here going, if I fire her, like, is this client going to go too?
Yep.
And when you give the feedback, like she would say things like that, like, well, so and so is going to
Ooh, that's
leave
the
if
hardest
you get rid of
situation.
me.
I've had one of those too.
But I think
Who was
that's
like the
like,
biggest contributor to the business
yeah,
and such an asshole.
yeah.
Like, uh huh.
And you just like, but there's some point you have to do, like, you go, I think for me, it's the self-talk of like, this is why you're the leader. Yeah. You got to put
Yeah.
the big boy girl pants on and make
Yeah.
this call. And, when I did, client didn't care. Team
Hmm.
loved it, rose to the occasion. I
Yep.
mean, it was like, and so the next time it took me about half as much time to do it than the next. And I think,
The muscle. Uh huh.
yeah. And then now, and I, again, if we go back to like, I should have given her like, it's not even like she should have never gotten to that point. Like I should have
Right.
given her the feedback day one. And
Right.
even, I think even
Right.
if someone's the big problem, you say like, hey, I'm the new person. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like you're getting really negative feedback from your team, and that's not how we work here. Like we can't have that. I can help you if you want. Kind of like it's like a probation thing
Yeah.
where you're being fair, like you're acting out of love,
Yes.
not fear. Like if you don't fix it, you're fired. It's like, look, here's where we are. This is the kind of company we're trying to build. If you like, you can't be a jerk.
Right.
Sorry, like that's just not.
Right.
If that's
Right.
something you can't fix, then you're going to have to go somewhere else. And then letting that person go if they don't fix it is kind of
I mean, it's
easy.
so
It's like,
easy to
hey,
say that.
remember
It's
this?
so hard
Here
to
you
do
go
it.
again.
Yeah. Um, it's really interesting. I mean, I think you're just even the way you delivered that. I feel like the way you speak changes everything too in terms of the safety in the
Mm,
situation, because it isn't like one of the tenets of like things like crucial conversations, and I work with a lot of conflict models, is that what you're saying rarely makes people feel unsafe. It's like how you're delivering it, right? So there's so many ways you can buffer that and be like, hey, this is how we work. You're performing really well, and I don't want to lose you. And I need you to act in ways that are consistent with the values of this company. So let's talk about what we do. Like it's just like I think there are just these. It's so hard to do that. Like to get to that place, if you need to rise above, let your ego out of it, be objective. So hard when you're emotionally tied to it and you see that person beating up people because you're mad too, right? Like you're
mm-hmm.
angry with them. So it's hard to manage yourself. God, self
Or,
management is just another thing too for
or
leaders.
sometimes,
Number
again,
one.
I think it all starts from, if you can have empathy, even for that person who's being a jerk, and how you say it, because
Yeah.
you do want them to. It would be a lot easier if they just stopped being a jerk. You would have to go
Exactly. Yes,
hire
you want to keep
someone,
them. It's
fire
true. Yeah.
them, pay for that, risk that the new person's good. Like,
Yes.
in addition to, wow, I could help this person live a better life and their personal relationships and all the other good things. Like it's all
Right.
mixed. But even, other tactics like, hey, I used to be like that too,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's my fault. I should have had this talk a long time ago. All these things that, even if it's kind of not true, like you were never that big of a jerk,
Yeah,
or,
I don't know.
but just giving them a little bit of room
Yeah,
for their ego to not be, because it doesn't fall on its own. It's a fucking lifetime process.
I
But if you can
know.
allow them to kind of keep who they are and just have this little hole, in the wall that.
It's so I go back and forth on what you just said because, and I think it depends on the style of the person. So I'm also a big believer in kind of
Mm,
understanding like the nuances, the person's strengths, kind of their style. And I have a sort of style where if you give me feedback, I will be thinking about it for the next 2 weeks. Like you could give me one line of feedback, I'm
yeah.
going to internalize it. I'm going to process it constantly. Like you don't have to say much. Like if you even hint that I did a bad job, I will get it. Like it's not so, but I've had like in my last role, I had someone very bullheaded working for me who was extremely good at his job, but we would laugh about it. I mean, unless I beat him over the head with the feedback, he could not hear it. Like it was so I feel like people often who are acting out do have a style like that. Like the people who might be kind of being a jerk or like too hard on that. It's that, and that one's really tough for me because I feel like you have to come in hard and they get angry. Like the ego fires up
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and then they hear it. Like it usually, like with my experience with people with that style, and this is just my experience. This is not a scientific fact. Is that like you have to kind of go in pretty aggressive for them to hear it. There's an angry, and I hate this. Like this is not my favorite thing. So I can take too long. Go in tough. Like we have a very hard conversation where there's a lot of accusations and like anger, and then the person hears it, thinks about it, comes back, and like the next day, a day or two, and it's like, okay, yep, heard it. Still mad at you, but like here's that. But I'm going to do a little bit here. Like it's not. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I don't know what the right thing is. The practices you mentioned to me are for someone like me, like that, where I need like,
Mm-hmm,
oh, I
mm-hmm.
used to do this. Oh, like there's all that couching because their ego's so soft. Like it could
Mm.
get. I don't know. It's really interesting. I'm still working on that, but I like to think about the person's style when we're going, with a client when we're going into those conversations.
Well,
So
I like what you say there too, which is like your emotions as the leader, the coach, whatever, count too. You're not supposed to just be a robot and go, oh, like,
right.
um, but if you can be strategic, like, so I've kind of similar to what you're saying, like, okay, this person, to get through to them, my usual shit isn't working. I got to pull out some other shit. Once it's been a while, but like probably the last time I got really angry with a business partner, happened to be an investor. It was like, I'm on purpose gonna fucking yell, like,
Yeah.
because they don't get it. Like I got
Yeah.
to do something else to
God, I
break through,
hate
and you
that.
kind of
And I
you
think
let
it's
loose the
real.
dog. I mean, I let
Yeah.
loose the kraken, whatever, and it
Yeah.
was like, and he got it.
Yeah.
Um, but I try not to use that.
Well, that's the thing is like, I hate having to utilize that style. That's really aggressive. Um, hmm.
But
And maybe there's a better way. Maybe I haven't. Yeah.
you mentioned, there's something I've heard and things you've mentioned so far is like, on one hand, there's some strategy, there's some tools in the toolkit. There, crucial conversations is a toolkit
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
thing. And yet you opened up talking about change happens at the individual level
Yeah.
and people have to figure it out on their own. Like those feel different. Like, how can you
Yeah.
have structure, but also individual? Like, we have a team of 1,000 people that we need to get on the page.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
mean individual? And I got to wait for each one of them to wake up, like.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think you can do. It's a great question, and honestly, like exactly what I'm grappling with is I think about what kind of practice I want to have
Hmm.
because I don't want to do things how I did before, but I want to work at scale with people where things are changing fast. So trying to think about what that looks like. I mean, I think it always goes back to So first of all, I think it always goes back to values and like having a framework that people are using to make decisions in any situation that's
Hmm.
consistent across the company. And it like I'm kind of heading out into left field here, but I feel like my thinking both at the personal level and at the organizational level is like the values guide you on everything. As we're making
Hmm.
change, like you as a leader have to go make a values based claim as to why this change is happening. I mean, that values or decision making framework to me. Um, and then people decide at an individual level if they're following that or not. And it's your job to entice them, right? Like, but
Hmm.
you can't motivate them. Like, I feel like you can set a vision, you can get people excited, but like they have to make that decision. And what does it look like for people to feel safe, to feel like that goals align with their values? I mean, that's you're asking me a question I can't answer actually, but I feel like I'm thinking about it all the time because
Hmm.
I want to create that kind of consonant framework where it's not overly processed. People are able to like do their best within their values, but everything's aligned at the company level. God, I have this like perfect utopia in my mind that I haven't been able to play out. I don't know. I guess I don't have a full answer for you on that,
Well, I think
but it's
your
interesting.
instinct is very good. Like, again, the first thing I asked my friend who was in this situation, with a company that brings him in as the change agent. Okay, you're going to solve all of our stuff, right? And um,
Such a
all kinds
dangerous
of
job.
tactics,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
our annual review is 19 pages. It sucks, or we don't have a process for this or that.
Right.
And I was like, what's the company even trying to do? Like,
Yeah.
just where are we going?
Yeah.
Which is vision, but it's also maybe the company's going okay, and you just got to turn these five knobs, but like, I think where I've had the most success in moving teams is when you do start with that, like, it's values, it's vision, it's where we going, and say, because then it all hangs on that.
It all hangs on that.
Like if you say, like, one of our companies, A2 Influence, they started off with a mentality, kind of like a, I don't know, you call it tagline, mission statement, whatever you have. But the statement is full fucking service. That's
Yep.
what we do. And it came from a business strategy of, in the world of content and influencer marketing, there's so many SaaS products out there, and they go like, we have to do it our way, and you got to learn our tool, and we only package it like this. Or, other products like, you have to do this or that, where we just say, we see there's an opportunity in the marketplace to just build processes that work for the client's process.
Yes.
And so you say that, and that's like great business strategy, but then it also informs everything the team is doing.
Yes.
Like, is
So
this,
true.
like, they ask themselves, is this full fucking service? Like, some, creative content came back and it was so, and someone on the team said, I don't think this is putting this full fucking service. So we're going to have it redone, and we're going to take the hit, to our margin on it. And like, those are the good things,
Yep.
just like keep hanging on to. And, the CEO says it at the all hands, the manager, teaches the new hire, like, here's how we operate here.
Yes. That was so important to me in my last role too. I mean, I feel like I met with every new hire who came onto the team, like, here's how we operate. Like, I just need you to know that. Like, this is the values. I mean, in an uplifting way, but like my expectation is that you're going to drop everything for customer service. Like, you just, and it doesn't, yeah, and it's fast, 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 like super responsive, quick, quick, quick. Like, you have to know that. But actually, as you were talking, I thought about that in terms of coaching too. That was something that I was thinking about prepping for this, is that when I coach someone, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of times I never don't know the person, like they've come in through a contact. I have no permission to get really deep into their life,
Hmm.
but I have to start with values. Like we have to start deep, like at the human level too. Like I need, just in the way that a company, to me, all the decisions hang on values. Like a person, often people don't know what their values are. They haven't
Hmm.
stopped to say like, here's what I value. It's actually always a very interesting exercise with people.
Hmm.
But I have to know that to be able to solve your management challenge with you. Like, I need to know what you value. Like, what is it that you're going to be fighting against in this conversation? Why are you reacting like that? Like, to me, the values are always so informative of kind of what is holding someone back or what's motivating them. It's really interesting. I mean, it's all about values. Like, I feel like I could start a values company too if it wasn't. So my ego's telling me it's too ooey gooey. So can't, Bob.
But how do you do that? Like, are you asking them
Oh yeah. No. I
quiz?
have them
Like,
do an exercise literally to like put together their values, like a purpose, like life purpose. And it's freaking awkward. Like, I mean, I do feel like when I don't know someone, I always send it with like like, are they going to react and be like, what is this? Cause it's long. I mean, you could knock it out in 45 minutes, but you could spend a whole day like on retreat with yourself doing it too. I mean, I want to know it all. And it's so, people love it though. Like, that's been my experience, is that if they bother to do it, and most of my clients do because they're here for a reason,
Yep.
they have so many insights about themselves, just spending time saying, is it this value or this value? Like, what is it that I really value and why? Like, why is that word important? Or is it health or family, or is it security? Like, I mean, and the other fun thing is that people always assume everyone has the same values as them. Like, well, of course, health would be everyone's top value. It's not. Like, it is not at all. And you can see in the human, like, the choices that they're making about different things. It's really interesting. So anyway, that was a long one, but I'm a huge proponent of values at the individual level and at the company value, guiding all decision making.
And are these usually like CEOs that you're working with?
Yeah, right now, most of them, or like executives, but I've done that set of exercises with like young people too. Like, I'll do like emerging leaders. And it's always, I mean, it's interesting. It ends up being different, and those change through your life, I think. But I don't know. I mean, it's a useful conversation with everyone. And I felt, when I started doing it, I felt so much trepidation because people don't love this stuff. And yet they do. They like someone listening to them for 90 minutes talk about their purpose and their values, and like really sussing out, is it this or that, or why did you put that? And I like work to be totally non-judgmental, because it's also like 5 years from now, let's picture your life. And if they want to be on the beach in Florida and not running a company, I'm not judging. Like, let's work towards that. Like, it's good to know that too, right? Yeah. Like, it's interesting. Or I want to be working less hard. I want to be staying at home with my kids. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not, we have to figure out how we're crafting.
Can you remember even why you decided to do that? To have that survey of questions?
So a lot of it came out of my coaching training. So values have always been super important to me at the company level. So I would say at the company level, values have always been really important. I like crafting them. I use them on teams. It's really important. The coaching training, really, I have to say, like, I pushed against this. Like, in my coaching training, it was like, you have to start really deep. And it was like, I don't have permission for that. Like, these are busy executives. We're going to cut some of these questions off. Like, this is too much. Like, no one wants this. I mean, I was that person. So I can't pretend like I'm this enlightened individual. Yeah. I was like, take us too much time. Because I'm all about, like, let's not waste people's time. Let's do this quick. And I remember arguing with like the head of the program, who is, like, runs a business, like a psychology program at a big university. Like, I mean, I had no business. And she was like, it works every time. I'm just going to tell you, like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like, people want to do this, and they do. It's true. I mean, so I relied on an expert to have that breakthrough. I can't say that I created that. But it was a breakthrough for me. Because I had my own version for a while, like, where I had cut off a lot of questions that had been studied and researched. Yeah. And I went back to it. I was like, no, your full list is actually better, because people don't want to cut this out. They'll skip it if they don't want to do it.
Do you think that could be applied to interviewing employees?
Oh, I have never thought about that, but I think it would be really interesting. Yes, I think it would be so interesting. I mean, I tend to hate like behavioral assessments, and they just suck. Like, they're not predictive.
Tell me about a time when you had a challenge.
Well, I mean, like, having people take like
Oh,
with
like
disc or like I don't know, like not that's not a good example. I mean, I've never done it, but like assessments because I've actually seen people using like IQ tests and well,
yeah.
they used to do that, maybe they still do. And like behavioral style, like here's what we need our salesperson to be, and here's the style that you have, and they're
25% yellow, 15% blue,
right, right,
whatever. So
right, like that sort of thing. So I'm always really, really scared of that, and there have been several times when I'm making a really important hire that I ask someone to not write essays. I feel like everyone wants to do that now in today's market, but like tell me their life, like share their life story for a little bit with the team. And it's really like cleaved us to people before just getting that. And that in my former company, that was actually kind of a brilliant thing that we did at that company, which is like you had to, it was like the first 20 years. That was a key question. There was like one thing you had to report. Like you had to ask them about their like birth to 18 story, which is totally probably illegal. I don't know. I feel like there's probably not reasons that probably reasons you shouldn't ask them that, but like what happened in their childhood and like their forming experiences in life was totally essential, and it was always fascinating. And it really helped, I think, nervous people too, who are trying to figure out how to like sell you on themselves, talk about like what shaped them. And it's similar to values, right? Like in some ways. Um, so helpful. So yeah, I think the long answer there is yeah, that could be really interesting.
it's funny. It goes back to, I mean, you could even say, I don't know why I thought of interviewing people like that. Probably because we all know the interview and application process is awfully broken.
Ugh,
It's
horrible.
ghostings and AI sortings, and I mean, it's horrible. But maybe that's what the future should be. Like, and by the way, we don't need people who have check boxes or went to some school. Like we all know
Yes.
it's so much bullshit. Like
Yes.
the skills you learn are not relevant anymore.
Yes.
We can learn things now. Like
Yes.
what we need is what's left when AI can do everything. It's the human core.
Yeah.
Is
It's
this a human
character and
being?
values
Yeah.
and like human
Like, so
strength.
let's
Yeah,
test the human being.
totally.
And I think the thing I cringe at is like, okay, we've got a certain bucket and we can just make a quiz and you get a color. Like
I know.
people are so much more interesting than that. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
but we're,
Yes.
as I knew, the hour would fly by.
Yes. Thank you. This was so much fun.
Let's leave with this. Let's do something. So we've said like our biggest learning in the last year. Let's hit something that we want to learn in the next year. So if we get back together, what's something maybe
Mhm.
new on our list of how to coach others or work with human beings of any type
Yeah.
that we want to get better at?
Yeah. I mean, I've been really interested and curious over the last 6 months about humans existing in uber complexity, like what and changing, like this rapidly changing world. I mean, politics aside, AI is now, I mean, we're going to have the wild west of AI in the next 2 years. No, regulations are not forthcoming. I'm just someone who believes that everything is going to change, like in the next 5 years. And I'm really committed to trying to think about how to help leaders maintain safety. I think you brought up a really good point about that. Kind of like how do you maintain safety and help people change in the way they need to at scale? Like, I mean, what does that look like? So I'm trying to figure out how to help people navigate change. I mean, not in terms of we're implementing a new platform change, but like in terms of this is a new world, scary as hell. Like everything that you've learned could be no longer relevant, and we need to move forward together. You bring these strengths to the equation still. Like, what does that look like? We hadn't talked about strengths, but I am very much kind of committed and focused to helping people understand that is such a beautiful thing when people are operating from their strengths. They're human strengths,
Mm-hmm.
which AI won't be able to replicate in most ways. So anyway, that's what that's really what I'm thinking about.
How to help people with the chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
like navigating the human side of it
Hmm.
and understanding enough about the technology side and the possibilities to be able to help with that. I mean, not to lead it, but to help people manage it.
That's good. We need that.
Um,
For me, I think it's I'm really trying, literally like trying to go, what if it is all about love? Like what if it is like,
oh, it is, Bob.
you know,
I think it is. Like I'm with you. Keep going.
well, I mean, it's funny, like as a choice, I'll tell a quick story.
Yeah.
And I have to look at like, and it comes from reprogramming yourself. I mean, all this stuff is like, how do you coach your own self? Like, and first heal yourself. If you've got your own shit together, if your own ego is down, there's room for
Yeah.
other people. And the latest, it's multiple things here, but like a very specific example, a fault I have had that have not been happy about myself is like judging other people.
Yep.
And that could be, having a conversation, this person's boring, or
Yes, I understand.
guilt, or like jealousy. I mean, all these somebody down the street, like, is that person going to attack me? Like all these, I'm running in my neighborhood, and I get pissed off on every run, like someone's cutting me off or not looking as I'm going running down the sidewalk. But a friend of mine, and I'll link to his post. Write myself a down note here. He's
Yeah.
awesome. But he talked about like living. What if you went around and felt like you had hearts coming out of your chest, like
Yeah.
emojis, like as you're walking down the street or driving.
Yep.
Or like another thing I'm trying to do now is I'm getting on a video with somebody, like just like send them love, like just like that positivity. And
I love this, Bob. Okay.
well, what I'm finding, like, and it's an experiment, like really do it. And I really go just, hey, oh, I didn't hit you with that car. I need to go send love to you. Oh, I didn't get that guy. Oh, I'm hitting you. And it's, it's reprogramming my mind. Like it's kind of like the voice of judgment is now becoming the voice of love. Like,
Yeah.
and not look out for that guy on the street. He might hit you in his car. It's like, oh, look out. Hey, hope that guy's having a great day. Like it's weird. And
What's it doing? How is it changing your brain at all yet?
I think, I mean, we could get really deep here, but I think that's kind of like, the
Yeah.
many religions, many mystics, many things suggest that, that's what we're born into. That's what children have.
Yeah.
And it's a shared, like, we are one, like, we're all part of one
No.
intelligence of some
God, we
kind.
need each other more than ever. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, once it starts, like, you see more of it and you can find new ways. And I think that gets to your point. Like, you started the conversation talking about, like, you hit this high point of self and ego, and then you start letting it go. And there's a great, um, there's a woman, Suzanne, I'm forgetting her last name, but she created a philosophy, a theory. It's like a scientific idea of having thousands of interviews with people. She created this like ego development theory that if you do grow, you kind of hit a point. I mean, just like you said, like you kind of hit a point where you max out on your ego, and then it starts to
Yeah.
dissolve. And as you dissolve, you find more room for other people, and you want to be in service to other people.
Oh my
And
gosh,
it
so
goes very
true.
extreme where you're like, I'm just happy to be here. Like, oh, look at all these great people, we're all out here. And even when society is going to shit, it seems like you can kind of hold your head up and go, this is just humanity, we're going to figure it out. If
Exactly.
not this life, the next one. you know
Exactly.
and if I think the true test of a belief of some kind, religious theory, science, whatever, it's, does it help you improve your life? Like, is it having some positive effect? And this is having a positive effect. It could be
Yeah.
bullshit. Like, you're dead, you're dead. There's
Mhm.
nothing else. Love is just something people created, but it's working. I'm happier, and I'm
Hmm.
having more room for other people. And having that more positive impact. So but I got a lot of work to do still.
I was looking at some things before we met today, and it's one of the books that I pulled out that if you haven't read it, you might enjoy it. It's called The Book of Joys. So the
Huh.
Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu wrote it
I
together.
did. I listened to that years ago. Yeah.
Have you? Yeah, yeah. It was just I was next to another book I was taking a look at, and I feel there's a part in it where the Dalai Lama talks about how even when you're in the middle of like abject misery and the worst moment in your life, like asking what you can do to help someone else is the way to shift your brain. I mean, I say this to people all the time, like you get stressed, look to gratitude. Like what are you thankful for?
Yeah.
How can you help someone? What do you see in somebody else? I mean, it changes brain chemistry. Anyway, we need to finish, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Your work for this year is so much more important than mine. Thank you, Bob.
Well,
I
you're
mean,
going to help me with chaos. We got a lot of chaos.
oh my
Things
god.
team up, but that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining. We're going to have another conversation sometime, maybe next
Yeah,
year. We'll do it and we'll check
yeah,
in on how we're
that would be
doing.
great. I would love that. Thanks for having me.
I will put links to all the good stuff you're doing on Substack to make sure people
Thank you.
see, find you on LinkedIn, find your business, get your
Thank you.
help. Only the good clients who
Yep, it's true.
value people.
We
But
want the same things. So,
you got it. All right. Thanks
right.
again, Meredith.
Thank you, Bob. See ya.